so excited. I was like a little kid, like the next day going to Disneyland thinking about this. So
Oh my God, I was so excited to be on it. Thank you for having me on. I was honored.
I like to like channel before my podcast to kind of like intuitively get some messages that are best aligned for you, for us. And one thing that kept coming up was unapologetic and authentically you. Hi, my name is Fernanda. I'm an intuitive coach, and this is At Spiritual Speed, a podcast for enlightenment. My intention here is for you to find inspiration, for you to find gems of knowledge, and for you to see that it is possible to get past where you're at in life. And this is the space where you could find that inspiration, where you could find that education. Let's ascend, let's enlighten at your spiritual speed. I am so happy I have Donovan here today to talk about. We got so much to talk about, but you have this amazing business where you help entrepreneurs, bigger businesses. I think you kind of have like a variety of businesses that you work with in helping them build their marketing, their branding, and really helping people get comfortable and find their voice online.
My big thing is basically, from the person just starting their business all the way to the big corporations, really helping people understand the importance of messaging, ethos, and their story, whether it's the story of their brand or the story of them and how that goes into their brand, and helping them harness that into something that sustainably allows them to build a presence and create something that they're proud of and that feels as fulfilling for them as it does for their customer or their audience through social media and personal branding.
I love it. And speaking of ethos, pathos, logos, like a communication major over here, I went to a very liberal school. So that is, I love it. Start with that because there's different areas that businesses need to touch on, and you help us because I've had sessions with Donovan. I've been in a course with Donovan. So, well, a class, I should say, a cohort, and you've helped me find a bit of my voice. So please, could you give me like a little snippet of what someone can experience in one session with you?
It depends on where they're coming from. I try to meet whoever is booking the call or booking the coaching where they're at, but it oftentimes comes into digging into what somebody's limiting beliefs are or what somebody's audience's limiting beliefs are. And oftentimes we start these businesses or we start these brands out of a need to be somebody that we at one point needed or because we felt called to do something or be someone that we needed. So I really help people tap into themselves to I stop creating content in a way that makes them feel like they're on a stage having to say something jaw-dropping to this, fictitious audience and really treat their content like a journal and be the person that they needed at one point, be the business that they needed at one point in time and show up as that person so that there's a reason to show up online outside of what the metrics are. There's, kind of this journalistic aspect where by posting content, you're learning more about yourself, you're becoming more self-aware, you're learning more about your business, and it creates more of a personality and a human approach. I firmly believe that if you have a strong brand, you don't need to sell, at least in the traditional way that we think of selling, because whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're a coach, whether you sell a product, whatever the case may be, that's just the tool for something much bigger that your brand represents. So I try to find what that bigger thing is and center the content around that, and then use your product, your service as the tool so that it becomes less of a convincing someone that they should work with you or that they should purchase from you and more of an automatic, like, of course, I want this person in my life.
That's beautiful. Speaking to the person that you were, however, a year, 2 years, 6 months ago, that's something that you helped me realize too. And when you and I had our last session, we talked about how my voice was up here and we should like bring it down here to talk to who I was a couple years ago when I started this journey. So on your journey to getting to where you are, because you worked at a company and then you transitioned into your own business, what were the early stages like making that transition?
Very anxiety inducing in a lot of ways, full of excitement because I really started posting on social media without even starting a business. I just wanted to build the brand first, but it took off rather quickly. And so, I always believe allow the demand to build up and allow people to be asking for you to create these programs or release this product because then it truly makes sense. And that's how you create something exciting. So, everything took off really fast and I kind of had to step away from that 9 to 5 job just because everything here was picking up quickly. But then it was really just dealing with the highs and lows of no one's coming to save you anymore. There's no more, passively just clocking in and doing the job and leaving. You have to show up actively and be excited every day. And I'm about to come up on my first full year of business. And the most important thing that's come from that, being that I built a six-figure business in 1 year, the most important thing that's allowed me to sustain that and is going to continue to allow me to sustain that is actually focusing on the mindfulness, the spirituality, the mental health portion of that, because there's been a lot of ups and downs in terms of the things that come up. You learn that your trauma, even if it has nothing to do with career, will follow you in your business if you don't address it. So learning to accept that this is my new life. I no longer have to suffer in order to survive. I no longer have to fight for every single thing that I have, and life can actually be easy. That's a lot of the deeper work that I've had to do this year to really make this business something that is going to last long term and to be able to approach my business effectively in the most intentional way possible.
Yeah, our traumas are our triggers. And that's something that I think a lot of us, especially those that have started businesses these last couple years, have learned the hard way. And the personal development part of it, the authenticity, the living unapologetically. We're not here for anyone's validation. We're here to serve our own purpose and to, like you said, help a version of us, which we're all reflections of each other. If we're so lucky to be able to get the opportunity to learn through each other. And looking back at your early life before starting the business, before getting into your career, what built you up to be who you are right now?
It's interesting because I think it was, I have always had a lot of fight in me. I've always been someone that is never going to let anybody, tell me I can't do something. And even my own family members telling me that, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, it's unrealistic. And just kind of leaning into this idea that I can do it no matter what. But what that's transitioned to now is less of a fight because I think I came from a place of I have to prove myself. And now it's more of I only have to live a life that feels like it makes sense to me. It doesn't have to make sense for anybody else. I don't have to fight to compete with anybody else. I don't have to prove myself to anybody else. All I have to do is show up and look myself in the mirror and say, I like the person looking back and I like the life that we're building for ourselves.
Yeah, it's you against you. And Janae has this quote, I think it was her dad that said it. And he was like, we don't compete, we complete. And it's a bigger picture. It's so much bigger than us. And it really is a collective effort. And being somebody on social media and being able to like just literally appear in front of people by the grace of a higher power. By the grace of the algorithm, we appear in front of each other on social media. And that's how I found Donovan, actually, by the way, was on TikTok. I'm like, scrolling one day and then you popped up and then I saw you had this class at the time or the course at the time and then I took that. So it's by chance. So much of life is by chance, but so much of it is letting life happen for you and not to you. And we could get stuck in that victim mentality so easily. And whether you're building a business or it's just personal development, what are some gems of knowledge you could give someone who is building up their self-esteem, their authenticity, and showing up to the world, not just business or social media?
There has to be something larger than yourself attached to whatever it is that you want to do. Because when you're so focused on, the tangible, don't get me wrong, we all want the views, we all want the metrics, we want the income. Like, we live in a society where that is, part of the thing. But all of that will attract to you when you have this thing that you're working toward that feels larger than any of that. For me, I don't see people, creatives, business owners, coaches talking about the mental health aspect of building this and building it sustainably. Everything is here's how you get 10K views in 2 months. And oftentimes, they're lying because nobody can guarantee that. But I really just saw this calling to be a representation of somebody who isn't in that hustler bro mindset of, grind for 80 hours a day. I'm neurodivergent. I was recently diagnosed with PTSD, depression, and anxiety by my therapist. So, that model doesn't work for me. And so I'm like, well, not everybody wants to build the $1 million, $7 million, $10 million business. Some people just want to live life on their own terms. Some people just want to make an income that they're proud of, that allows them to save, to be comfortable, to go to Target every now and then when they want to. And that's what I want. I want a soft life. I don't want a life where I wake up every day putting fires out, dealing with a bunch of employees who are all relying on me for their livelihoods. I just want to be able to show up and live my purpose like I do every day. And I work, maybe 20 hours a week most weeks, and I get to spend the rest of my time living my life. And that's what I want people to understand, is that the work is not the task, the work is not the desk, the work is your life. The work is learning to be aligned with yourself, because when you are in alignment with yourself, you move forward in a way that naturally attracts people to you. When you show up for, yourself, when you show up for you, when you take care of yourself, everything, all the tangible things really kind of fall into place. We oftentimes look at the mindset and the spirituality and the that stuff as the mumbo jumbo part. Oh, that's the stuff we get to work on once we've made the money. We can be happy once we've earned this income or we've made this goal. When in reality, happiness, joy is actually a habit that you have to prioritize every day. It's something you have to give effort to every single day. And by doing that, you will be able to show up in your career effectively. I think we oftentimes look at life as these branches where it's like, okay, career, relationships, fitness, whatever the thing may be. But and I used to look at it that way, but now I see it as more of everything is intertwined. There's these roots that are all interconnected together, and you have to water every part of that tree in order for it to grow into something beautiful that you can look at and be proud of.
Yep. And it's funny you say roots because that's been a really big message that's intuitively been coming to me the last like week is you got to get to the root of everything, whether it be the root of wanting success, the root of trauma, the root of happiness. Why do you really want it? And sometimes we have to pull the roots out and completely be done with them because if we just get like to the branches of the problem, that it's still growing. Whatever that issue is, it's still growing because it has roots. So
Yeah.
getting deep down and really doing that work, and it's not fun. It's not pretty. There's nothing glamorous about healing. There's nothing glamorous about personal development. And before getting to a space that you realize you've been working backwards, so looking for success, looking for the relationship, looking for the perfect career, what is going on within you? And it's that authenticity that I find a lot of us have issues with. What is authenticity to you?
Yeah, so I think that's such a great point, by the way. A lot of people think you just put the band-aid on it and it's like, well, the reason you're not growing in your business is because you don't have this funnel. Well, or it's because you're not posting consistently. But why aren't you posting consistently? To the question about authenticity, what authenticity means for me is showing up and not showing up as an aesthetic or what you think you should be showing up as, but showing up as if you were talking to a friend, talking to yourself, talking in the mirror, whatever the case may be. I think, social media has kind of commodified the word authenticity and relatability to where, someone who comes to mind is like Emma Chamberlain. She was always marketed as relatable and authentic because she wasn't afraid to be, self-deprecating, or she wasn't afraid to, put her hair up in a bun, or she wasn't afraid. But to somebody like Paris Hilton, let's say, that's not authentic. It's not authentic for Paris Hilton to try to relate to the everyday person. And I really appreciate that she doesn't. I really appreciate that she understands that she's just rich and she's just, successful. And this was all like, a lot of this was given to her because of her, family. But like, that doesn't mean she's not a hard worker, but like, she doesn't shy away from that fact. And so authenticity means like truly living in what your truth is, not what you think your truth should be in order to appeal to some type of audience.
Oh my God, that like I felt attacked by that response actually. 'Cause that's something that I saw. That what you really taught me in the class was the not appealing to people that aren't for you. So you don't have to be out here to please everybody and you don't have to work 24/7 to have success. And I think you and I have something similar where it's like the way that we grew up, we felt that we had to work 24/7. We felt that the number or the views or the this was tied to, I know for sure for me, tied to success. But it's so
Hmm.
much more deeper than that. And I think showing up authentically like yourself, like you said, Paris Hilton has her version. Everybody has their own version. And that's something that I've had to realize within myself. And with that comes the imposter syndrome. Because we think, oh, well, so and so is, someone that I look up to and I feel whether it be career, whatever it is, relationships, but that's not you. You can't be someone else. And when you're trying to be someone else, it's very evident. And that kind of pushes people away because it's this weird thing with human beings where we're attracted to authenticity, whatever
Yep.
it is, right? So there's so much to unpack there. But when it comes to clients and working with clients, how do you get them past the limiting beliefs, past the imposter syndrome?
Yeah, so with imposter syndrome, it's all about, getting to the root of where that's coming from. There's always a voice attached to these insecurities or these fears of being authentic. So it's really, asking them what are their own limiting beliefs that stop them from showing up in the way they want to. Like, what are the things they tell themselves? Because there's some reason why they feel like them is not good enough. They feel they're not funny enough, entertaining enough. They don't look like this person. They don't sound like this person, whatever the case may be. So behind that, there's a voice saying that I have to look like this in order to be successful. I have to act like this in order to be successful. I have to think like this in order to be successful. I have to talk like this in order to be successful. So then the question becomes, well, whose voice is that? Oftentimes it's somebody in our upbringing, our sometimes our own parents who told us that we have to be this way. In our example, like you were saying, you don't deserve success unless you suffer for it every single ounce of the way. We didn't come out of the womb thinking that. That was a voice of somebody else that they projected their own anger at the world, their own, whatever their own limiting beliefs onto us, and we're holding on to those. So identifying whose voice that is, understanding that their voice does not have to be our voice, and also then considering the source of that voice. Is that person living the life that you want to live? Is that person, someone you would consider happy? Do you want to be like the person who gave you that voice? If that's the case, then, or if that's not the case, then you should consider why you're listening to that voice. So that's kind of the process. Is it's really, again, comes back to getting to that root. You can't put a band-aid on these things. You have to identify where this voice came from. A lot of it now is social media. We see someone who on Instagram flaunts their highlights of their life, and we're like, oh, our life doesn't look like that, but it has to look like that. Something I hear all the time from my clients is, well, I show up on TikTok because that's where you can be authentic. And Instagram, you have to be really, really aesthetic and look a certain way. I've gained 30,000 followers on Instagram in the last 2 months by breaking all of the rules. Prop up my camera. There's no perfect set. There's this window that really probably should be cleaned. I wear a hoodie. I wear a hoodie. My hair. Sometimes I haven't even done my hair or showered yet. But when the message comes, I'm not someone who's going to then say, okay, I got to go shower. I got to go wash my hair. I've got to go do the message is there and it's relevant and I'm fired up about it right now. So it's time to prop up the camera, say what I have to say. There's no fancy editing in my videos. There's no fancy captions in my videos. It is 45 seconds of me delivering something that I needed to hear and me projecting that out into my audience, and that has worked every single time. So we create these limitations based on these voices. Sometimes they come from our parents, sometimes they come from our peers, sometimes they come from society as a whole. And we have to ask ourselves if those voices are really even something that we want to take into consideration, because are they living the life or are they encompassing the life that we want to build for ourselves?
That's so deep. Going back to your childhood and seeing who put those thoughts, who put those voices in you is wild. And unless you go through some really good therapy or you got really good mentors or coaches like yourself, a lot of us don't know that. And I'm a mom, I have two kids, and that's something that I try to keep in my mind at all times. Like I did a market this past weekend, and for me, it was a really slow weekend. I only had 7 clients. I can't believe how slow it was. And then I see them looking at me, and I was like, I saw exactly who I needed to see this weekend. It was only 7 people, but those were the 7 people that I was supposed to talk to and nobody else. And we had fun and we got to be outside and be under the sun. And we get to do this. We're so blessed to be able to get to do these markets and build a business together. So I instantly snatched myself because I was like, damn, I'm giving them some like funky energy right now.
Yeah, something I saw this quote on a podcast, and I really wish I remember who said it because it has stuck with me for years. And it says that if treating yourself like a drill sergeant was going to work, it would have worked already. So many of us go around treating ourselves, and we think if we just bully ourselves hard enough, that'll motivate us to get where we want to go. But has that really worked out for you? Has bullying yourself ever actually sent you into a space? Maybe it motivates you for all of, a day, but then you just feel worse about yourself the next day
Mhm.
because again, you haven't addressed the root. You know, people call themselves lazy, they call themselves whatever, but it's like no one's just lazy because they're lazy. Why are you lazy? Are you depressed? Like, get to the root of it because, you keep trying this. You've tried 150 times to bully yourself into being productive or being more successful or whatever, and that has yet to work. So maybe we should try something different and say, what if I ask myself some questions on why I'm feeling this way, where this voice is coming from? How could I change this so that this voice doesn't come up again? And give yourself a little compassion because that's something you probably haven't tried doing with yourself yet. And I can tell you from personal experience, that's what I've been doing the last 3 to 4 months, and the result has been crazy. I have never been able to regulate my nervous system better than I am now that I practice mindfulness, grounding exercises, and I don't, I accept that I have a neurodivergent brain. So if I'm lazy one day, that doesn't mean I'm a lazy person. It means that I needed rest that day. And by just surrendering myself to that rest, that makes me better the next day. And the most important thing is that when you take a rest day, it's not a rest day if you spend the whole day feeling guilty because you're resting. A rest day means you've accepted that you need this rest and you're okay with it and you're giving yourself that permission. If you bully yourself the whole day you're taking a rest day, you didn't take a rest day. You just sat there like hating on yourself all day. That's not restful.
Literally hating on yourself is like the perfect way to put it. I love that drill sergeant quote. That is like that's a priceless piece of information for sure. And looking at your journey, what is, and it's such a timeless question, and we hear it all the time, but what is something you would tell yourself 5 years ago?
I think I would tell myself, it sounds really simple and kind of basic, but that it's all going to be okay. And that you don't know how life is going to play out in terms of the external sources. You don't know if your business will be here in 5 years. You don't know if you'll be in this job for in the next 5 years. You don't know if you'll be in this apartment or in this state or any of that. You have no idea what external forces might come into your life. But what you can always return back to is knowing that there's never been a situation that's come up so far in your life that you haven't figured out how to work yourself out of, that you haven't been able to adapt to and come out on the other side, and not just come out on the other side but come out better on the other side. So stop putting your trust in these external things and trying to control everything and make sure that things are going to stay forever, and just turn that trust inward and say, no matter what stops, starts, changes in the outside world, I know that I've got me and I'm always going to find my way through it because I've proven that to myself time and time again.
Yeah, the ebbs and flows of life are wild. And I think detaching, surrendering, and what do they say? Like, comparison is a thief of joy, not comparing yourself to anyone else. Major life keys. And I just working with people on the scale that you do, I know there has to be like a level of like borderline therapist that you have to be to some of these people. So looking at your clients, what is one memorable session or a memorable client that you've
I
had?
feel like every session almost feels like a major breakthrough. I had a client who took 6 months off of social media. This is recent. And he was just so burned out, and he had put them himself, and I labeled himself and shoved himself into this box of who he thought he should be. And by the end of our first session together, he had kind of broken down because what we identified is that he didn't understand that he had intrinsic value in himself and that he's more than what he can tangibly provide to other people, which is something I tell my clients all the time. You don't, even if you are a service provider and you offer a service, you're more than that service. There is something so strong in being human. And I think that that's even evident when it comes to business. Nowadays, people don't want to follow the coach who seems like they always have it together. They want to follow the person who, when they don't have it together, they have the tools and the resources and the ability to know how to work themselves through that. That's what makes a good leader. That's what makes a good coach. And so in this session, we're talking about this, and he had realized just how much he was undercharging for his services. He realized just how much he was undervaluing himself, how much, he was bullying himself. And by the end of the session, this was probably 3 weeks ago, he was just completely broken down, but not in like a bad way, but in a way that was like, thank you for helping me see me. Thank you for helping me realize that I do have a light that I can share with this world. And, now he's working on rebuilding everything from the ground up. And like you said, taking those roots out and building new roots that aren't rotten at the core and are, able to grow sustainably and into something beautiful into the external world.
It was like his tower moment, which reminds me like of a tarot deck. When people get the tower card, they see this card that's like this building on fire and people like falling out of it and they're like, "Oh my God, what's gonna happen?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's gonna get wild, but all greatness is preceded by chaos. And sometimes it has to be broken down, burnt down for you to get there. And if my sister always tells me, let it go without leaving claw marks, because I will just like for dear life hold on to something and not just let it go. And there's so much power in that surrender. There's so much power in faith over fear. And looking at your early life, because you're so blessed with success and you've worked your butt off to get here. What is a moment in your early life where you had to really surrender and you got the reward for that surrender?
What comes to mind is leaving my childhood home,
Mm.
um, which at the time, financially seemed so impossible. But it's interesting how once you get out there, you kind of figure it out. But I knew that that home had broken me in so many ways, but I did not know the extent of it until I had left. And I did that by going back to college, and I lived in a dorm for a semester, and I met friends, and I literally just let go of everything. And I did probably a lot of things that were stupid and that maybe you shouldn't do, but it was so needed because I had grown up so early. I didn't realize that I was being a parent to a parent. I didn't realize that I was being a therapist to a parent and I was only, like a child. I didn't realize how much I had taken on. I didn't realize how much I had swept under the rug. I didn't realize how far away from myself I had gotten. And so I just took that semester and I let go of everything. And I surrendered. And it was one of the best times of my life. And I still somehow managed to pay bills and get there and make life happen, even though I let go because I had always told myself if I'm not working, if I'm not doing this, then there's no way this is going to happen. But I just decided to let go. And if I did not take that semester, I would not be here today. I think I would potentially still be in that situation where I am, even in that home.
Wow. I mean, the faith over fear is wild in those spaces. And it's even more tricky when you're in a situation where you don't have the support, where you don't have parents that are gonna, oh, here's an apartment to live in and pay for everything when you have to figure it out for yourself. And looking at people that want to start businesses online right now, people that are clients that you would work with when they're in those early stages of they haven't even thought actually about starting businesses. They just need to take that leap of faith. What is something a piece of advice you would give them?
It's all upside, right? There's everyone's either afraid of failure, everyone's afraid of success, or maybe a mixture of both. So what right now is that your current situation doesn't work. We know that. You're wherever you're at right now, if you're thinking about taking this journey, whether it's because you're incredibly sad and that's not good enough, or you're content, but you think that there's just something more out there for you. You're not content with where you are right now. So you know that staying in this place where you are isn't an option. So often we stop ourselves and we stay stagnant because we're worried we're not going to do something perfectly or it's not going to work out or whatever. But regardless of whether it works out or not, you know that where you're at right now isn't enough for you. It's not in alignment with you. So there's only upside in taking that step forward and trying. And I think often, and this, I don't know if this is dark, but I think often about the day that I am looking up and, I'm at the end of my life and I'm reflecting back on it. And I don't ever want to say that there's nothing that I didn't at least give myself a chance to do. If I gave myself a chance and it didn't work out, then great. I've had more failures than successes, but every failure led me back to somewhere better that has allowed me to get to the place where I'm at right now, which is what I consider living my absolute dream life. There's really, I have some goals, but there's nothing large that I want out of life anymore. I have it.
Mm.
And I would not be there had I not gone through the failures, had I not taken the step. And the first step is always going to be scary. It doesn't matter how much you think you're gonna, be prepared, or, maybe if you just do it at this time, or when you have a prettier, more aesthetic apartment, or when you're not dealing with this stuff right now, the time is never going to be perfect. So especially when it comes to content creation, learn to harness whatever the difficulty is at that moment into your content. If you feel like you want to be a content creator, but your apartment isn't aesthetic, make that part of the thing. There's a lot of people who want to be content creators, but are scared that they don't have an aesthetic apartment. Speak to those people. Be the example of someone who shows up as somebody with that apartment that isn't ideal and isn't afraid to still post their content. Make that part of your movement. You know, whatever I always tell people, what the things that you're too afraid to show or say in your content are the things that would actually make you more interesting, because
Wow.
what it is that you're afraid to you want to conform to what's been there. You don't think your apartment's good enough because you see other people's apartments, but there's a whole group of people being unfulfilled that don't have that, right? And you can be the person that steps in and fills that void for somebody or for a whole group of people. And that can be exactly what launches you. All of those thoughts that we hold in our head that we think nobody else will understand, that's what needs to be shared, because that's what's not being said. We think nobody else will understand because we haven't heard anyone else talk about it before. But if there's one thing that TikTok and social media in general has taught us, it's that we've never lived an individual experience.
Mm.
So there is that audience out there. And if you haven't heard it before, or you feel like no one else will understand, that is how you know that that's what you do need to share.
Wow, like literally priceless info you just got. And that's what it's like getting a session with you. In our last session, I got my whole tagline out of it. And it was something that I was like really stuck on. I was like, and a lot of my story is being frozen in fear. So you spoke to a deep pain point within myself. And I know so many people deal with that. And I have a lot of entrepreneurs, spiritual entrepreneurs that follow me on Instagram from the communities, from the markets I've done and whatnot. And so many of us, there's something they call the witch wound. So it's like thinking back like generations. I'm a fourth generation energy worker. My grandmothers did this work, and it wasn't anything they had to hide. A lot of people came to them for healing, for services and whatnot. A lot of people that I'm around, they have that witch wound, that being frozen in fear, that fear of being seen because of what we do as spiritualists and dealing with the witch wound and being seen. What's something you would tell them?
Your work is needed. It's so needed. I've been diving into that space myself, and, reading and studying that area. And there is nothing more than the, call it what you want, the, spirituality, the witchcraft, the crap, whatever it is,
Mhm.
that mediumship, like whatever it is that you identify it as, there's nothing that's helped me. I've been in therapy for 6 years, and my therapist has helped me a lot. Don't get me wrong. But actually tapping into what I can't see has been the singular thing that's allowed me to let go of anxiety. And I've booked a session with you before too, and it was incredibly helpful. And you opened my eyes in so many ways. And, reading these books by all of these people who practice this craft, and their, grounding techniques or meditation techniques, using tarot as a practice every day, and then meditating on that, you know, that has been the thing that's allowed me to, there's no cure for anxiety, but I have never felt this light in my life. And that's just because I feel like I am, a spirit. I am intact with a spiritual being living a human experience.
Mhm.
And I would not have had that if it weren't for people like you and people in your space who operate at this frequency. So know that if you're afraid that, you're gonna, people are gonna think whatever you think they're going to think about you, know that there is someone like me who sees immense value in your work, is willing to pay for that work. You're not meant to be for everybody. The biggest leaders in the entire world were not for everybody. You think Martin Luther King was for everybody at the time he delivered that speech? No,
Yeah.
but it's the people who aren't afraid to disrupt the status quo, and who aren't afraid to be the only person in the room standing up for that thing, or the person who's, or share their message, that is going to be in the history books, or that is going to have the impact on people that they want to have. So just, from a professional and a personal standpoint, you're needed.
Guys, thank you for that. That was beautiful.
Of course.
It's definitely something that a lot of us need to hear because there's so many talented people, so many gifted people out there in the spiritual space that are just a little scared of being seen. So I really pray that somebody needs, and I know somebody will hear that really needs it. And it's going to be the little push that they need to get out of their comfort zone. But looking at a session with you, or because you sell packages as well and sessions, and I'm sure you got more up your sleeve. So if you want to give us any like teasers, I'm here for it. But what does a package look like? What would we get out of it working with you?
So I make my packages super simple because I think simplicity is something very important. I think a lot of coaches like to fluff their packages with a bunch of stuff that's actually not helpful, but it's pretty documents, so it makes you feel like you're doing something.
Exactly.
I make my calls are a mix between strategy and therapy. I am not a therapist, so I will obviously not be diagnosing or do anything of that sort, but we do dive into, your past and if whatever someone is comfortable sharing in order to help you identify how you can show up online and be that person or be that brand that you needed at one point in time. So basically, to break it into a 3-month period, the first month is gonna be spent laying that groundwork, planting those seeds so that the roots can be strong forever. My goal is not to make someone dependent upon me. I want them to thrive for years after they're done working with me and for my voice to be in their head years after they're working with me because the advice was that good. So we will get on and set up that groundwork. Who is your audience? Who are you? What's your point of view? What do you have to share in the world? What gets you out of bed? What are the limiting beliefs? And then at the same time, we'll experiment with different types of content to find what resonates with your audience, what resonates with you. We'll use that data for month 2 to make strategic decisions on how we would move forward, and kind of hone in on the strategy a little bit more. And then by month 3, usually they're a well-oiled machine, and I'm there to kind of help continue to build, reinforce, modify, and experiment and make strategic decisions. But that being said, that's the general structure. But what I pride myself on is that I meet every one of my clients where they're at. I work with everybody from someone who's never posted a piece of content before in their life to somebody who is a 7-figure business owner who, needs help realigning with their message and their brand and automating and things like that. And so every client is a little bit different because I don't believe in a one size fits all approach. I believe that everybody has a unique gift to share, and it's my job to provide a unique strategy plan, schedule for those unique gifts.
I agree. It's resonates why I named my podcast at Spiritual Speed, because I believe we all get to where we're supposed to be at our own spiritual speed. It's unique to everybody. So while we can have a general idea of what people can get through our services, it really is unique to everybody. So, and I think you're very well equipped to help a lot of people at different, like you said, meet them where they're at. And you've definitely done that with me more than once. So thank you for that. And I really encourage everybody to reach out. And even if you get one session, like I said, I got more from you in one session than I could figure out by myself in months. So it is worth
Thank you.
it. And while I was like so stuck, I was like, I'm not getting it. I'm not getting it. And you were like, bam, there it is. And in one sentence, I literally have your notes from our session pinned at the top of my folder because I look at them like damn near every day.
Oh,
So
well, thank
they
you.
are
I just kind of
priceless.
see the knot in people, and I'm like, oh, what's the string that needs to be pulled to unlock this knot? That's kind of how I've always viewed my work.
And I love that you're tapping more into your spiritual side because that is just going to open up so many more doors. And I'm sure you know that and you've seen that already.
Yeah,
And
for
like I said,
sure.
you really are a blessing to the collective and anyone that comes across your page and gets to see you. And even the free content, the free info that you give us on TikTok or Instagram, it is priceless. I like to believe, a lot of people will say, well, I can't afford that just yet. There's plenty of free, I mean, the library is very close to most people. It's free to go
Yep.
check out a book. You're very big on reading books. I've seen that. So if someone is at a place where they're like, ooh, I can't quite afford it just yet, what is a book that you would recommend that could help them level up?
Ooh, great question. I would say I'm reading a book right now that's actually really strong. It's called The Age of Magical Overthinking, and it's all about the different cognitive biases and how
Wow.
they make us make decisions. So I think it's has so many implications when it comes to designing your business, but also making sure that you can see things from an outside perspective and what they are and not be fooled by these different cognitive biases that we have. Really strong book. I also love The Body Keeps Score. I've read that book. I know that's a really popular one, but those would be the two I've read the most.
Good starting points for
Good
people.
starting points.
Yeah.
Also, the book, I think it's called Attraction, and it teaches you about the different attachment styles.
Ooh.
Not related to business, but it is related to business because it teaches you how your obsession with things or your relationship with things, people really can have an impact and how you can work through those things. And I also something poetry, like so poetry is something I read a lot of. I'm reading a book called Duff right now, and I'm actually working on my own poetry book. I think that sometimes we don't need advice as much as we need somebody who can put our thoughts into words, and that's what I think poetry is good for.
A little inspiration. I get so many messages when I read books. And it's funny because I talked to this gal, she gave me like a little mini reading a couple weeks ago. And she was like, somebody from your past used to like read the newspaper, drink coffee, and that's how they would get their intuitive messages. And every morning I start with reading and drinking coffee to get messages. And I was like, whoa, that's kind of weird that you knew that.
Yeah.
But it's like tapping in. So the books are a beautiful way. Like I said, you have so many gems you put on social media for us. So no matter where you're at, you literally find everybody where they're at and you're able to help them get to a bigger and better level. And again, thank you for that. It's so amazing.
Thank
And
you.
I won't take up too much more of your time, but I would love to know when it comes to your life, both the challenges that have helped you grow and challenges that have helped you open doors to realize where you need to grow. What would be, keeping all that in mind, what is the theme song of your life?
Good Days by SZA.
Ooh, I haven't heard that one.
It's all about in the mix. There, I mean, it can be taken from so many different perspectives, which is why I love it. My first tattoo was actually that song on my leg. And it's all about kind of overcoming your trauma, not allowing your past to define your future, but also there's such a level of humanity that SZA is just known for being able to put into her songs, where it's like it's not about being perfectly healed. You're going to be drawn to some of these past patterns, but you like intentionally overcome those and you tell yourself that those aren't good for you and you rewire those brains and you restructure those thoughts to better serve your future self. It is a song I listen to every single day. It is a song that I will never not listen to. I mean, it literally is tattooed on my body. But that song pulled me out. I think that it was a catalyst for so much change in my life.
Yeah, the cycles and the patterns in life. I feel that paired with the human emotions are if one of the biggest, if not the biggest reason why we're these weird little blobs of human flesh on this beautiful earth is getting past the cycles, realizing what cycles we're repeating, stopping the patterns. I saw somebody on social media the other day. He was talking about his kid and he was like, my kid is like all of the, I see the worst version of me in him and I can see the best version of me in him. And it's funny what kids, whether you have them or not, and even our little dogs, our little animals are little reflections of us. Like I had my dog in at training a couple months ago, and the trainer was like, "Are you very anxious, like always in a rush and jumping out the car and a rush out of the house?" And I was like, "Why are you like attacking me right now?" And she was like, "Well, your dog is showing me that." And I was like, "What?" She was like, "Yeah, his behavior is showing me how anxious you are." So
You're calling me out because my cat is literally just like me.
I'm telling you, whether it's a human kid or a fur baby, they really are reflections and they're opportunities, just like all of us, opportunities to learn and grow.
Absolutely.
This has been so, I mean, I could go on and on, but I won't. Maybe we could do a part two if you're up for it, because
Yeah,
there's like
abs
so much more
anytime.
I want to talk about.
Abs I am always, willing to get on here and, share anything with the collective.
These are beautiful gems. Like you gave us beautiful gems to work with, and getting out of our own way is something that I think you help a lot of clients with in your sessions.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And everyone go book with Fernanda too, because she's amazing.
You're so
You were my
sweet.
you were my first medium I've ever booked with.
Really?
Yeah.
What? Oh my God, I love that. I hear that from a lot of people, which I kind of feel like might be a theme for me, actually.
Hey, that's what you're called to.
First stop. I love it. You have been so amazing. Tell us, where can we find you on social media?
Yeah, so I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. My name is Donovan Barrett, and my username is at Donovan Barrett pretty much everywhere. I'm on YouTube. It's at Donovan Barrett with an underscore because otherwise you'll be taken to a Taekwondo channel, which is probably we should really just take that down. But but yeah, that's where I hang out, and yeah, that's where you can find me.
Wonderful. So amazing. Like I said, so many gems. I think we're definitely gonna have to do a part two, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah,
And again, go over to his channel, watch the videos, book a session if you can. It's literally priceless what you can get out of it. Even if it's on a personal development kind of tip, even if it's not a business thing, I really think you could. I'm just gonna put you out there. You could also touch on that area as well. So
yeah,
thank you so
absolutely. That's
much.
something I'm dipping in more, so thank you.
Okay, look, sneak peek. Sneak.
Yes.
You're amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.